We spend so much of our lives looking for a harbor. We look for it in the steady rhythm of a predictable routine, in the reassurance of a partner's voice, or in the validation of a job well done. It's like we are constantly trying to build a fortress out of things we cannot control. You find yourself pacing the floors of your mind, wondering why, despite having a roof over your head and a seemingly stable life, you still feel like a house built on sand. Think about those moments when a sudden change happens. Maybe a project you poured your heart into gets canceled, or a close friend suddenly moves to another city. Instantly, the ground beneath you shakes. You feel that familiar tightness in your chest, that sudden rush of vulnerability. We've been taught to look outward, to fix that feeling, to find something, anything, to anchor us. But when the outer world is always shifting, looking outside for permanent safety is like trying to catch the wind. We don't even realize how deep this habit runs. From the time we are small, we are taught to look around us to figure out if we are okay. We look at the expressions on our parents' faces, the grades on our papers, the warmth of the rooms we walk into. We learn to read the room before we ever learn to read our own hearts. And so, we carry that exact same blueprint into our adulthood. When the day feels heavy, or when a wave of unexplained sadness hits us on a Tuesday afternoon, our first instinct isn't to turn inward and ask ourselves what we need. Our first instinct is to look out the window, or look at our phone, or look to the next milestone to save us. We tell ourselves, if I can just buy that house, if I can just get that promotion, if I can just find someone who never lets me down, then I will finally be able to take a deep breath. But the breath never quite comes, does it? Or if it does, it only lasts for a moment before the anxiety creeps back in. You buy the new furniture. You rearrange the living room. You get the praise you thought you wanted. But the quiet ache inside remains completely untouched. It's an exhausting way to live, always waiting for the external conditions of your life to be absolutely perfect before you allow yourself to feel secure. It's like waiting for the ocean to stop waving before you decide to learn how to swim. Think about how much energy you spend every single day trying to keep the outside world in order, just so you don't have to face the shakiness inside. You double-check your calendar. You over-prepare for casual conversations. You try to anticipate every single problem before it even happens. You become a manager of circumstances. But circumstances are fragile things. A company downsizes, a lease ends, a person changes their mind. And suddenly, the safety you worked so hard to build vanishes overnight. You are left standing in the ruins of an outer structure, feeling just as lost and unprotected as you did years ago. This constant outward search is really just a quiet form of homesickness. We are homesick for a place we haven't built yet. We are looking for someone to look at us and tell us that we are safe, that we are handled, that everything is going to be fine. We place this immense, heavy burden on our relationships, on our careers, and on our daily routines, asking them to give us a feeling that they were never meant to provide. A friend can love you deeply, but they cannot live inside your mind and quiet the storm. A job can give you a sense of purpose, but it cannot hold your hand when the lights go out and the old doubts return. When we rely entirely on the outside world to make us feel secure, we hand over our power to things that don't know how to keep it safe. We become fragile because our peace depends on the weather, on the mood of our boss, or on the tone of a text message. We are constantly at the mercy of life's unpredictable currents. It is a deeply lonely way to exist, feeling like you are always one unexpected event away from completely falling apart. You deserve more than a safety that can be taken away from you by a single change of plans. You deserve a security that stays with you, even when the lights go down, even when the plans fail, and even when you are standing completely alone in the quiet of the night. To protect ourselves from that instability, we build armor. We construct a version of ourselves that feels invincible, polite, and always put together. You might become the person who always says yes, the one who coordinates every social gathering, or the colleague who never shows stress, even when deadlines are crashing down around you. We wear these masks because they make us feel managed. We believe that if we can keep our edges perfectly rounded and our mistakes completely hidden, no one can hurt us, and nothing can shake our foundation. But there is a heavy cost to wearing armor that doesn't belong to you. Carl Jung once observed, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet we spend so much time becoming who we think we should be, just to feel secure. When you are always wearing a mask, you are constantly hiding, and you cannot feel safe in a place where you are not allowed to show your real face. The armor that was meant to protect you ends up becoming the very cage that isolates you from yourself. Think about how heavy that armor gets as the days turn into years. It starts small, maybe in childhood or during a difficult time in your youth, when you realized that showing your true sadness or your raw anger made the people around you uncomfortable. So, you learned to adapt. You learned to tuck your real feelings away in a dark corner and put on a brave, smiling face instead. You became the dependable one, the strong one, the one who never needs help. And everyone around you clapped for that version of you. They told you how mature you were, how wonderful it was that you never caused a fuss. But inside, a quiet tragedy was taking place. The real you, the part of you that was scared, tired, and deeply human, was left behind, locked away under layers of steel and politeness. When you live behind armor, you are constantly on guard. Every conversation becomes a performance where you have to monitor your tone, your posture, and your expressions. You double-check your words before you say them, filtering out any hint of vulnerability, making sure you sound completely certain, even when you feel totally lost. If someone asks how you are doing, the word "fine" escapes your lips before you even have a chance to think about how much your heart is actually aching. You become a stranger to the person in the mirror. You look at your life and realize that people love the armor you wear, but they don't actually know the person inside it. And that realization brings a profound, heavy sense of loneliness. You begin to realize that the safety you built is an illusion. True safety means being loved and accepted for who you are, not for how well you can pretend to be strong. We wear this armor because we are terrified of what will happen if we take it off. We worry that if we show our true, messy, unfiltered selves, people will walk away. We fear that our vulnerability will be mistaken for weakness, or that our doubts will make us look incompetent. So, we keep the visor down. We keep pushing forward, carrying the immense weight of everyone else's expectations on our shoulders, never allowing ourselves to drop the heavy shield, even for a single afternoon. We treat our sensitivity as a liability, something to be managed and suppressed, rather than a beautiful, vital part of who we are. But the truth is, your armor doesn't just keep out the bad things. It also keeps out the good things. It keeps out the deep, genuine connections that can only happen when two people look at each other without any masks. It keeps out the warmth of true comfort. Because when someone tries to comfort you, the kindness just bounces off your cold metal exterior. You cannot feel truly held by life when you are constantly protecting yourself from it. Taking off the armor doesn't mean you become defenseless. It means you stop fighting against your own nature. It means you finally give yourself permission to step out of the heavy, suffocating suit of expectations and breathe the open air as your true, beautifully imperfect self. Have you ever noticed what happens when the day slows down? The meetings are over, the chores are finished, and you are just sitting on the couch. That is usually when the noise starts. It's not a loud sound. It's a quiet, persistent hum of unease. It's the sudden memory of an awkward conversation from 3 years ago, or an unexplained anxiety about what tomorrow might bring. It is that heavy, restless feeling that creeps in the moment you stop moving, whispering that you have forgotten something important, or that you aren't doing enough, or that something is fundamentally wrong. Instead of sitting with that discomfort, our instinct is to immediately numb it. We pick up our phones to scroll through social media feeds. We turn on the television just for background noise, or we start reorganizing the bookshelves for the 3rd time this month. We do anything to avoid the silence. We fold the laundry that could have waited until tomorrow. We make random to-do lists, or we clean the kitchen counter over and over again. We create artificial storms in our environment just so we don't have to listen to the weather inside our own minds. But that unease isn't an enemy to be silenced. It's actually a part of you trying to get your attention, knocking on the door, asking to be let in. Think about how much effort it takes to constantly outrun yourself. We live in a world that praises constant movement, so we use busyness as a shield. We fill every blank space in our calendar because free time feels dangerous. Free time means quiet, And quiet means the return of the noise. You know that exact moment at night, right when your head hits the pillow and the room goes dark, where the distractions fade away and you are left completely exposed to your own thoughts. Your heart rate quickens slightly. Your mind starts racing, jumping from one worry to the next like a pendulum. You think about the deadline next week, the tone of a colleague's voice during lunch, or a regret from your past that you thought you had buried long ago. It feels like a chaotic internal static, and it is so deeply uncomfortable that you might turn the light back on, reach for a book, or turn on audio just to drown it out so you can finally sleep. We treat this quiet noise as if it is a defect, a sign that we are failing at being happy or peaceful. We tell ourselves, I should be over this by now, or I have a good life, so why do I feel this emptiness inside? But the noise isn't a flaw. It is the sound of your pushed down feelings trying to breathe. Every time you ignored your sadness during a busy work week, every time you swallowed your anger to keep the peace, and every time you brushed off your own exhaustion, those feelings didn't just disappear. They waited. They accumulated in the background, waiting for a moment of stillness to finally surface and be heard. When you spend your whole life running from this inner noise, your own mind becomes a terrifying place to be. You become a fugitive in your own life, always looking over your shoulder, always needing the next distraction to keep the sadness or the anxiety at bay. You can never truly relax, because relaxation feels like opening the floodgates. But avoiding the noise doesn't make it go away. It just stretches the tension out over a lifetime. It leaves you feeling chronically tired because it takes an immense amount of daily energy to keep the lid on your own inner world. The noise is simply a part of you that has been left out in the cold for too long, knocking frantically on the windows of your awareness, asking for a safe place to finally rest. Becoming your own safe place means changing your relationship with that internal noise. It requires a shift from running away to standing still. Imagine you are walking through a sudden downpour. Your immediate reaction is to tense up, hunch your shoulders, and run for cover. But what happens if you just stop running? You still get wet, but the frantic panic disappears. You realize that the rain is just water, and while it is uncomfortable, it cannot break you. When a difficult emotion arises, whether it's a sudden wave of loneliness while making dinner, or a sharp pang of inadequacy after a meeting, try to just sit with it for 60 seconds. Don't try to fix it. Don't analyze why it's there. And don't judge yourself for feeling it. Just acknowledge it. Say to yourself, I am feeling overwhelmed right now, and that is okay. By giving your feelings permission to exist, you stop fighting yourself. Safety begins when you realize you can survive your own emotions. Think about how much energy we waste trying to negotiate with our pain. When the heaviness lands in your chest, your mind immediately goes to work trying to build a case. It starts asking, why do I feel this way? Who caused this? How do I make it stop right now? We treat our discomfort like a fire that needs to be put out immediately, or a puzzle that must be solved before we can take another step. But emotions don't want to be solved. They just want to be allowed. When you try to fight a feeling or force it to go away, you are essentially telling a wounded part of yourself that it is unwelcome in its own home. You are abandoning yourself in the exact moment you need your own presence the most. Turning toward the discomfort is an act of incredible bravery. It means sitting on the edge of your bed, placing a hand over your heart, and letting the sadness or the anxiety wash over you without trying to escape. It means noticing how the emotion feels in your body. Maybe it feels like a heavy weight on your chest, a hot tightness in your throat, or a restless shaking in your hands. Instead of pulling away from that physical sensation, you lean in. You breathe into it. You treat that physical ache with the same gentleness you would show a friend who is crying. You don't tell them to stop crying. You just sit on the bench next to them in the dark and let them know they are not alone. When you start to practice this, something miraculous begins to happen. You realize that emotions have a natural life cycle. They are like waves in the ocean. They rise, they reach a peak, they break, and eventually, they recede. The only reason a difficult feeling stays trapped inside you for days, weeks, or years is because you are constantly fighting it, pushing it back down before it can reach its peak and dissolve. When you finally stop fighting, the wave might feel terrifyingly high for a moment, but it will pass. You will take a deep breath, look around the room, and realize that you are still here. The feeling it didn't destroy you. This is how you build true, unshakable confidence in yourself. You stop being afraid of your own internal weather. You no longer have to live your life in a state of high alert, constantly worrying that a sudden memory or a bad mood will ruin your entire week. You know that even if the sadness comes, even if the anxiety knocks you off your feet for an hour, you have the capacity to sit with it, hold it, and survive it. You become the steady, grounded anchor in your own storm. You are no longer running from the dark. You are the one holding the light, making the space safe enough for even your heaviest feelings to finally rest and heal. Our inner world is vast, filled with different rooms and landscapes. There are places we like to visit, our achievements, our happy memories, our strengths. We love to linger in the well-lit hallways of our successes, where the trophies of our efforts are neatly displayed, and where we feel capable, intelligent, and valued. But there are also dark corners we avoid, places where we store our regrets, our insecurities, and the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable. We lock those doors, turn off the lights, and pretend those rooms don't exist, hoping that if we never look inside them, they will somehow disappear. Carl Jung beautifully noted, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." To truly awaken to yourself, you have to explore the whole house, not just the pristine living room. When you refuse to visit the wounded parts of your mind, you leave them abandoned. True security isn't about having a flawless inner landscape. It's about being willing to walk through every single room of your mind without judgment. Think about the maps we draw for ourselves. We create strict boundaries inside our own heads. We tell ourselves, I am allowed to go here, but I am never allowed to go there. We abandon the parts of us that felt weak during a difficult breakup, the parts that felt terrified during a time of financial strain, or the parts that made a mistake we still haven't forgiven ourselves for. We treat those memories like hazardous terrain, completely closing them off. But those closed-off rooms don't stay silent just because we locked the door. They leak. Their damp, cold sadness seeps under the doorways and into our daily lives, coloring our current relationships with unexplainable fear and making us feel like imposters in our own skin. Imagine buying a beautiful old house, but deciding that you are too terrified of the basement to ever go down there. You spend your life staying only on the top floor, constantly listening for creaks in the floorboards, always living in a state of quiet apprehension, wondering what is hiding beneath your feet. You can never fully relax in that house. That is exactly what we do when we avoid the hidden geography of our minds. We live on the surface of ourselves, terrified of our own depth. We become afraid of our own history. To become your own safe place, you have to be willing to take a lantern, walk down those dusty steps, and unlock those forgotten rooms. You have to look at the version of you that was clumsy, the version that was desperate for approval, or the version that felt completely broken, and recognize that they are still a part of your story. When you open those doors, you won't find monsters. You will just find parts of yourself that have been waiting in the dark for a very long time, cold and lonely. They don't need to be scolded or cleaned up. They just need to be acknowledged. When you map out your inner world with kindness instead of fear, the layout of your life completely changes. You stop running from your own shadows. You begin to understand that a complete human being is made of both light and shade, both triumphs and deep, quiet struggles. You realize that you can visit the places where you feel fragile without falling apart. By claiming every single corner of your mind, the beautiful, the messy, and the broken, you finally create a home that is sturdy. You are no longer a tenant living in fear of your own house. You are the owner, standing firmly on your own ground, knowing that every square inch of who you are belongs to you. Within each of us, there is a whole cast of characters. There is the inner critic who points out every mistake, the perfectionist who demands a flawless execution, and the vulnerable child who just wants to know they are valued. Often, we let the critic or the perfectionist take the steering wheel, believing that their harshness will keep us safe from external criticism. We fall into the trap of letting the loudest, most aggressive voices in our heads dictate how we feel about our worth, entirely shutting out the quieter parts that are just crying out for a bit of understanding. Think about a time you made a minor mistake, like dropping a glass or missing a turn while driving. What did your internal voice say? Was it kind, or was it incredibly harsh? When we speak to ourselves with cruelty, we turn our own minds into a hostile environment. Becoming a safe place means stepping in as the adult in the room. It means looking at that critical voice and gently saying, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I can handle this with kindness instead." Think about how exhausting it is to let these different characters fight for control of your mind without any supervision. On any given afternoon, you might experience a whirlwind of internal conflict. One part of you is screaming that you need to work harder, do more, and never slow down, while another part is deeply exhausted, begging for just an hour of rest. Then, a third voice steps in, shaming you for being tired in the first place, calling you lazy or unmotivated. It feels like a crowded room where everyone is shouting over each other, and you are left sitting in the middle of it, completely paralyzed and overwhelmed. We often mistake these internal voices for our absolute truth. We believe that because a voice sounds loud and authoritative, it must be right. But if you take a step back and really listen to the inner critic, you will notice something profound. That voice isn't actually trying to destroy you. It is just terrified. The critic shouts at you because it believes that if it doesn't punish you first, the world will punish you harder. It thinks that by being incredibly cruel to you, it can prevent you from making mistakes that might lead to rejection or failure. It is a deeply misguided, ancient defense mechanism that we picked up along the way to survive. When you begin to see these voices not as your identity, but as a cast of characters trying to navigate their own fears, everything shifts. You stop taking their insults personally. Imagine a small child who is terrified of the dark. They might shout, throw a tantrum, or say mean things out of sheer panic. You wouldn't shout back at them or believe their angry words. You would recognize their fear and offer them a comforting presence. This is exactly how we must learn to treat our own internal characters. The next time the perfectionist tells you that you are a failure because a plan didn't work out perfectly, or the next time the insecure part of you tells you that no one likes you, don't argue with them. Don't try to suppress them or hate them for being there. Instead, step back and become the calm, steady observer of your own mind. Look at that frightened, demanding part of yourself with deep compassion. You can say to that voice, "I hear how scared you are right now. I know you are just trying to keep me from getting hurt, but you don't have to carry this heavy burden anymore. I am here now, and I am going to take care of us." By becoming the gentle, loving parent to your own internal family, you build a sanctuary where no part of you ever has to feel exiled or abandoned again. You cannot build an internal sanctuary if you let every external demand stomp through your mind without permission. Many of us confuse being a safe place for ourselves with being a safe place for everyone else. We overcommit. We take on other people's emotional burdens, and we say yes when our entire being is crying out for a no. We stretch ourselves so thin that we become transparent, losing our shape entirely just to make sure that the people around us remain comfortable, happy, and content. Imagine your energy as a beautifully tended garden. If you don't build a fence, people will walk through it, step on the flowers, and leave their clutter behind without even realizing it. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It is an act of self-preservation. When you tell someone, "I can't take on that extra task right now," or "I need some quiet time this evening," you are sending a powerful message to your own psyche. Your well-being matters. I am looking out for you. Think about how many times you have abandoned your own needs just to avoid the temporary discomfort of letting someone else down. Someone asks you for a favor on a day when you can barely keep your eyes open from exhaustion. Your body is heavy. Your mind is begging for rest. And every instinct you have is screaming that you are completely empty. But instead of honoring that quiet plea from within, you look at the other person, swallow your own fatigue, and say, "Sure, I can help you with that." In that very moment, a quiet betrayal happens inside you. You are telling yourself that their convenience is more important than your survival. You are leaving your own house unguarded to go tend to someone else's yard. We are terrified of boundaries because we associate them with conflict, rejection, or loneliness. We worry that if we start saying no, people will think we are cold, or worse, they will stop loving us altogether. We have been conditioned to believe that our worth is directly tied to our usefulness, that we are only valuable when we are giving, fixing, or rescuing. So, we become chameleons, constantly changing color to suit the environment, always on high alert for anyone else's dissatisfaction. But a life without boundaries is a life lived in a state of constant exposure. It is like living in a house with no doors and no windows, where the wind, the rain, and every passerby can just wander in and disrupt your peace whenever they please. Learning to set boundaries means understanding that you are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. If you say a kind, honest no to someone, and they respond with anger, disappointment, or guilt, that reaction belongs entirely to them. It is not a sign that you did something wrong. It is simply a reflection of their own internal landscape. You do not have to carry the weight of their reaction on your shoulders. You are allowed to let them be disappointed while you sit quietly in your own space, protected by the boundary you just built. This is how you teach your own heart that it can trust you. When you start standing up for your time, your energy, and your emotional space, the frantic anxiety inside you begins to quiet down. The scared, overwhelmed part of you finally stops panicking because it sees that it has a protector. It realizes that you are no longer going to sacrifice your peace just to keep a superficial harmony in the outside world. Every time you set a healthy boundary, you are laying down a brick for your own internal fortress. You are creating a physical and emotional space where you can finally let your guard down, drop your shoulders, and rest, knowing that the person guarding the door is fully committed to keeping you safe. When children are upset, we don't demand that they logically explain their distress or immediately fix the problem. We don't look at a crying child and tell them to figure out a 10-step plan to feel better by tomorrow morning. We offer them a warm blanket, a soft voice, and a steady presence. We sit close to them, stroke their hair, and tell them, "I am right here. You are not alone, and it is going to be okay." Yet, as adults, we completely forget how to offer that same comfort to ourselves. We expect ourselves to just get over it, stay strong, and keep moving. We treat our own sadness like an annoying disruption, and our anxiety like a personal failure. We need to learn the art of self-soothing. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be the simple act of wrapping yourself in a warm jacket when you feel lonely, making a hot cup of tea and drinking it slowly without looking at a screen, or taking 3 deep, deliberate breaths when your thoughts begin to race. These small, physical acts of kindness are signals to your nervous system that the danger has passed. When you take the time to bring comfort to your body, you are sending a profound message directly to your psyche. You are telling your body, "You are safe here with me." Think about what we usually do when we are hurting or overwhelmed. Instead of offering ourselves comfort, we usually turn up the heat. We scold ourselves for feeling down, or we try to push through the exhaustion by drinking another cup of coffee and forcing ourselves to finish just one more chore. We ignore the coldness in our hands, the tightness in our jaws, and the heavy ache behind our eyes. We treat our bodies like machines that just need to be fueled and driven, rather than living, feeling spaces that absorb every ounce of stress we experience. When you live like that, your body stays in a constant state of high alert, always waiting for the next blow, never knowing when it will finally be allowed to soften. Self-soothing is the antidote to that chronic internal tension. It is a quiet, deeply personal practice of reparenting yourself in the moments when the world feels like too much. It means noticing when your breathing has become shallow while you are sitting at your desk, and choosing to drop your shoulders away from your ears. It means recognizing that afternoon slump not as a sign of laziness, but as a genuine cry from your system for 20 minutes of quiet stillness. It can be as simple as changing into your softest clothes the moment you get home, turning down the harsh overhead lights, and letting the room settle into a gentle twilight. These small rituals are not luxuries. They are the literal language of safety. Your mind can understand words, but your nervous system understands textures, warmth, weight, and rhythm. When you wrap yourself in a heavy blanket, when you are feeling emotionally fragile, your body interprets that physical pressure as a protective embrace. When you slow down your movements, walking softly down the hallway, washing your face with warm water, with deliberate gentleness, you are actively telling your heart that there is no emergency right now. You are giving yourself permission to step off the treadmill of performance. Imagine how different your life would feel if, the very next time a wave of rejection or sadness washed over you, you didn't panic. Instead, what if you closed your eyes, placed both hands flat against your chest, and just felt the steady rise and fall of your own breathing? What if you spoke to yourself in the quiet of your room, using the exact same tender, patient tone you would use with someone you love more than life itself? You would say, "It's okay. This hurts right now, but I've got you." We are going to take this one breath at a time. By building these small bridges of comfort back to yourself, you stop looking for external hands to stop your shaking. You realize that your own hands carry the warmth, the patience, and the profound capacity to soothe your own heart back to peace. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are carry immense weight. If you constantly tell yourself that you are fragile, that you can't handle pressure, or that you are fundamentally flawed, you will always feel unsafe. These narratives are often just old echoes from our past, phrases we picked up from critical teachers, stressed parents, or painful endings. They act like a heavy, invisible script that we carry around in our pockets, reading from it every time life gets difficult, completely forgetting that we were the ones who accidentally let someone else write it for us. It is time to look at those old stories and question their validity. Are you really incapable? Or did you just have a difficult day? Are you really unlovable? Or did one specific relationship just not work out? When you begin to rewrite your narrative based on objective reality rather than old fears, the internal climate changes. You start to see yourself as someone who is resilient, adaptable, and fully capable of navigating the storms of life. You begin to realize that you are no longer that helpless child or that broken person from your past. You are the author of the life you are living right now. Think about how deeply ingrained these cruel summaries of your character actually are. When a plan falls through, or when you experience a setback, your mind doesn't just say, "This specific situation didn't work out." Instead, it takes a giant leap and says, "See? You always mess things up. You never finish what you start. You are just destined to be disappointed." We form these sweeping, definitive verdicts about our entire identity based on temporary moments of struggle. We treat our mistakes not as things we did, but as who we are. It is an incredibly heavy way to live, walking through the world with a constant judge in your head, waiting to pronounce you guilty at the very first sign of trouble. We hold on to these old narratives because they feel familiar. And sometimes familiarity can be mistaken for safety. It feels safer to expect the worst of yourself because then, if you fail, at least you aren't surprised. It feels safer to tell yourself you are weak because then you don't have to carry the terrifying responsibility of trying to be strong. But this is a false kind of peace. It is a slow, quiet, suffocating of your own potential. Every time you repeat an old, negative story to yourself, you are digging the groove a little deeper into your mind, making it harder and harder to see the beautiful, resilient truth of who you actually are. Rewriting the narrative starts with a moment of gentle interruption. It means that the next time you hear that familiar, destructive voice start to tell you that you are not enough, you simply pause. You take a breath, step back, and look at the evidence. You look back at your life, not through the lens of your failures, but through the lens of your survival. Look at how many difficult days you have already lived through. Look at how many times you thought your heart was too broken to ever heal. Yet here you are, breathing and trying again. Look at the immense, quiet courage it took for you to just get out of bed on the days when the weight was almost too much to bear. That is not the history of a fragile person. That is the history of a survivor. You have the power to change the words you use to describe your own soul. You can look at your sensitivity and stop calling it a weakness. Instead, you can recognize it as a profound capacity to care deeply about the world. You can look at your past mistakes and stop calling them proof of your worthlessness. Instead, you can see them as the messy, necessary growing pains of a human being who is learning how to live. When you change the story, the whole world changes with it. You stop looking at yourself as a broken thing that needs to be fixed, and you start seeing yourself as a deeply resilient, beautiful work in progress. You finally give yourself the grace to be human. And in that grace, you finally find the safety you have been searching for all along. Being your own safe place doesn't mean you will never feel afraid, sad, or lonely again. Life will always bring challenges, unexpected turns, and moments of deep uncertainty. The difference is that you will no longer look for a hiding place outside of yourself to escape those challenges. You stop running from room to room, looking for a door that leads anywhere but here. You no longer expect a change of scenery, a new job, or another person's love to finally make you feel like you belong in this world. You realize that the harbor you were always searching for wasn't a specific house, a job title, or another person's approval. The harbor is you. It is your ability to sit with your pain, to speak to yourself with gentleness, and to stand by your own side when things get difficult. When you build that steady, unwavering companionship with yourself, you can go anywhere and face anything. Because no matter how chaotic the outer world becomes, you will always know the way back home. Think about what it truly means to finally arrive at this place within yourself. It means that when a storm hits, when a relationship ends, when a plan collapses, or when a sudden wave of sadness washes over you on a quiet evening, you don't panic and try to escape your own skin. Instead, you drop your anchors right where you are. You take a long, deep breath, and you realize that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one happening right inside your own chest. You look at your fear and your sadness not as enemies that have breached the walls, but as weary travelers that just need a place to sit by the fire for a little while. We spend so many years feeling like guests in our own lives, constantly trying to earn our right to be here. We think we have to be perfect, or always happy, or always productive, just to deserve a sense of peace. But true belonging doesn't come from what you achieve or how well you please the world. True belonging is a quiet agreement you make with yourself. It is the moment you look in the mirror and say, I am staying right here with you. No matter how messy it gets, no matter how many times we have to start over, I am not going to abandon you ever again. That promise is the foundation of an internal sanctuary that nothing outside of you can ever tear down. Imagine the absolute freedom of living your life from this space of internal security. You no longer walk into a room wondering if people like you. You walk into a room simply wondering if you like them. You no longer stay in situations or connections that drain your spirit just because you are afraid of being alone. Because you realize that being alone with yourself is actually a peaceful, beautiful place to be. You stop treating your life like an endless emergency that needs to be managed, and you start treating it like a journey that you are fully equipped to handle. You become the steady hand that holds you steady when the ground beneath you shakes. This is the ultimate return. It is the realization that everything you were ever looking for out there, the validation, the comfort, the protection, the unconditional love, was already inside you, waiting for you to slow down long enough to notice it. You don't need to rebuild your whole life to feel secure. You just need to rebuild your relationship with yourself. You are the shelter. You are the warmth on a cold night. You are the steady, quiet voice that says, we are going to be okay. And once you truly understand that, the search is finally over. The doors are unlocked, the lights are on, and you are finally, beautifully, completely at home. This journey of becoming your own safe place is not a finish line you cross once and then leave behind. It is a quiet, continuous practice of returning. It is a decision you will have to make over and over again. In the most ordinary moments of your life, when you are standing at the kitchen counter, when you are stuck in traffic, or when you are staring at a blank wall, trying to figure out what comes next. There will still be days when the old armor feels tempting, when the inner critic shouts loudly, or when the outside world feels so loud that you forget everything you've just built. That doesn't mean you have failed. It just means you are human. Safety isn't the absence of fear. It is the presence of a steady companion within yourself who can hold that fear without panicking. Whenever you feel lost, remember that you don't have to search the world for a shelter. Just slow down, drop your shoulders, place a hand over your heart, and take one deep breath. You are already there. You are safe.